everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. Welcome to the Daily Medicine Transmission for the 16th of March, 2022. Our moon is in Virgo, and I, for one, am feeling a sense of relief, or at the very least, somewhere where all this combust emotional energy can go. So, welcome back, everyone. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to check out Catalyst Energies. Special shout out to membership on Subscribestar. The full moon astrology forecasts for your sign are soon to be available to you, so just keep an eye open for that through Subscribestar, because that's where it will be linked. So my friends, let's get right into today's transmission. The moon is in Virgo, and honestly, as much as if you have strong Virgo, you are a Virgo, you may find this to be a little bit more familiar and comfortable to you. If you don't have strong Virgo, or you have a lot of mutable energy that's not Virgo, you may also find that this is even more of a challenge for you right now, because that would be square and opposite. But just remember that the moon in Virgo right now is going to be opposite the sun at our full moon on Friday, opposite Mercury in Pisces, opposite Jupiter in Pisces. So there's a lot of challenge. And also, Virgo is naturally quincunx to Aquarius, so there's going to be plenty of challenge between Virgo, which has to do with us individually, getting into the minutia of who we are, our sensations, our resources, the materium that makes up our energy, and utilizing it, drawing it into ourselves to practice our works, practice anything, right? Training, discipline, purification, self-care, practice, daily routines, habits, what you're doing with your resources that is really conditioning and reconditioning you as an individual. So Virgo is about service. It is about nourishment. It is about the time of the plant cycle when the roots are doing all the work. So it also seems like nothing's happening. This is very hermit mode, not in a I'm going into my turtle shell mode because I want to protect my feels. That's very much the Cancerian aspect, but it's using the feels and the stabilizing power of the root system to draw what the plant needs in order to grow the fruit, right? Leo time in the Northern Hemisphere is when the flowers are really blooming and pollination happens. Once that happens, the plant's hormonal cycle, just like any being that becomes pregnant or is bearing any kind of seed, whether it be an actual seed, an egg, or a flesh animal, it's all the same in terms of now it's time to nourish that which will release the potential for the next cycle. So we're getting pulled into this place, of course, emotionally and in our subconscious, in our dreams, Mercury in Pisces is going to be opposite the moon. This is going to be an interesting, mutually beneficial relationship, as we'll get into. But it's really the quincunxes with all of the Aquarius energy that is going to be really challenging. Squares to Black Moon Lilith, an asteroid. Not even asteroid. She's a dwarf planet. Ceres is a dwarf planet. Squares to them because they're both in Gemini, hovering around Aldebaran, right? And so, especially Black Moon Lilith to be so coming into a conjunction with Aldebaran, and Archangel Michael is the one of the patron deities, I guess you could say, right? It's the representative of that position of the fixed star Aldebaran, which is 9 degrees Gemini in Western astrology. So there's certainly a lot of challenge, and will continue to be so because of all of this energy in Aquarius and Pisces. But by the end of today, Uranus is going to be in a trine with Virgo, with the Virgo moon. And this is going to be by the very end of the day. It's going to be in square with Lilith. So we'll get into the chart and really break it down in a concise fashion so you can kind of see. But there will be more challenge today, but at the very least, the energy is now kind of started to contract within us a little bit, and we have something that we can do with it. It's not easy though, right? Going into this space, and this is why the hermit is so associated with it, because the hermit's going into their own darkness. It's not about pushing away or hiding or bypassing. It can be, but it's about knowing that you have to get silent and still and in underneath the surface of who you are in order to really draw the resources to grow and to condition and purify yourself so that you offer yourself into a contract, the social order, your community, your relationships, okay? And while this is important today, this is still about the individual's practice and endurance and training in the face of and in frustrating patterns with, Venus, Mars, Vesta, Saturn, all in Aquarius, Jupiter, Neptune, the Sun in Pisces, right? These are all situated in what is going on at a collective level intellectually and cognitively and in terms of frequency and signals, and what is the experience of being immersed in the social experience as a whole. So a lot of our attention is still being pulled there, while there is these moon transits that are really the only thing right now that are other than Chiron and Uranus in the North Node that are really pulling us back into our individual selves. And I think this is really important, because the more we get pulled into a strictly collectivist perspective, then we lose our ability to be a intentional and sovereign human being in this process. And I think that really got activated with the moon in Leo. So now we have something to do with it. One thing I want to share before we get into the chart. So I'm going to get out of studio mode here, and I want to bring up, let's make sure that it's, yes, this picture in full, the picture that I sourced for today's transmission for the thumbnail. This is from Astronomy Picture of the Day. Which is linked in the description box below. It's very easy to get to. And this is an artist rendering of our known universe, right? The observable universe. So what does that mean? Well, the observable universe is exactly what it sounds like. This is the boundary of the universe as far as we have the capacity to observe. And we observe through the observation, through light, right? Electromagnetic radiation allows us to come to know all of the spectra of these stars and their mass, their the energy that they output, right? Their density, all of these things, and their color based on the quality of the electromagnetic spectrum that we are able to see with telescopes, right? Various telescopes. So here's us at the center, because from our perspective, this will always be our perspective while we are here. And then you see all the fixed stars in our galaxy that surround us. And then you see the galaxies themselves that surround us. And then the idea of clusters and super clusters of galaxies. And then it gets all granular and really, really almost imperceivable. And then just empty space, right? And that doesn't mean there isn't anything out there. That means that is the boundary of the observable universe so far. Now, what do you see here? You see a cycle. You see a circle. You see something that comes back around, right? And not linear, right? This is not linear. Now, of course, this is not a true rendering of our position in the universe as the center, because there is no center of the universe, especially because it's dynamic and it's moving, it's expanding, right? How can there be a fixed point of center? That is something to consider. But in terms of this, if you need some perspective right now about our little dot here on Earth and what's happening, because we're getting pulled into the collective experience with all of this energy in Aquarius and Pisces right now. At the end of the astrological year, getting ready for the equinox, where what? Still point of balance. Oh, interesting. If you need some perspective, though, this I think is very helpful. And to know that each of our individual contribution, which is really developed in Virgo, as a discipline, and as an action itself, right? It's mutable earth, right? You're using the resources you have to actually develop and grow. If even though our contribution all matters, it's the nature of Virgo to be able to exist in two places at once, but still recognize the boundary. This is what the analysis part of Virgo represents. If you it matters, but also look at this. Look at the expansiveness of what we would consider observable universe, and consider a multiverse theory, consider multi-dimensions, and consider the source of all, right? And God and a divine blueprint. And I think it will help just calm the energy if that's something you need. Some people are comfy AF, right? They are like, bring it. And not everybody is everybody's in a different place about their own participation and contribution to where we are right now. That's very karmically based, and is at a soul level. Maybe it's part of your Starseed mission. So I just wanted to share that, easily sourced from Astronomy Picture of the Day. That way you can zoom in and see where everything is. And if you were part of the Starseed Fellowship last week, there was a subject that came up about rendering some other type of chart, and I just want to share that this is similar to what I'm starting to conceptualize. It's still very conceptual right now, and it's probably not going to be something I could put active work into until later, but that's fine because Mercury is in Pisces right now. So it's very conceptual and imaginative and inspired thoughts and creativity right now. So let's look at the chart and just kind of dive right into it for today's transmission. And I hope everyone's doing well and taking good. This is a great time to really get into what you need to do to take care of yourself, how you can take care of yourself. And remember, your sensations through your senses and your even quote unquote sixth sense, right? Your psychic sense, your internalized energetic sense. I mean, I definitely feel energy in my body, right, as a physical sensation very often. And this is what I'm really talking about when I talk about sensation as a feeling versus emotion as a feeling. Both important, different places. Taurus in the second house, feeling that is sensation, right? This is your gut check. This is when you feel energy in your body and what the quality of it, or if it's even coming from you, where it's coming from. This is your instinct, your emotional feeling. Cancer, right? The fourth house. This is where you're able to even acknowledge this is the first water in the astrology chart is Cancer. And so this is where you really start to develop your character. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's the combination of these two factors that Virgo represents. So, and big up to the Virgos. I have strong Virgo. I'm not a Virgo, but I have Saturn in Virgo. And everybody has Virgo somewhere, unless your Virgo house is intercepted, and that means you don't have any house cusps. But still, everybody's got Virgo somewhere in their chart. But I have Saturn in Virgo. I have my North Node in Virgo. And they're both starseed markings right now. They're both 7th and 8th house. So I really resonate with the Virgo frequency. Okay, let me find what I'm doing here. All right, let's bring up the chart, shall we? This is for today. So this is, what time is it? This is about noon Eastern time. So if we went back 12 hours into the very first part of the day, or midnight Eastern Standard Time, so 5 a.m. Universal Time, you will have seen that the moon was passing from the very last degree of Leo into Virgo. Okay, so and right away has a quincunx to Vesta in Aquarius, and then as you can see here is starting to come into a quincunx or a 150-degree angle with Mars and Venus in Aquarius. Now we are getting into Draco territory. 7 degrees Virgo is Alpha Draconis in the tail of the Draco constellation. This is fixed star Thuban, Thuban, or Alpha Draconis, and is the primary star for Draco star seeds, right? So, and we'll be in this position, pretty much exactly as it quincunxes Mars in Aquarius. So and it will quincunx Saturn by tomorrow as well. So the natural quincunx with Virgo in Aquarius, you have fixed air and then you have mutable earth, and one is about the collective and social organism as a whole, and the other is about what the individual is doing under the surface of themselves. So they don't seem to really fit together at all. But what they are allowing us to do is find the place that they do fit, because part of our contribution to society based on the work we do within ourselves is directly connected to the quality of the social organism as a whole. So the focuses themselves are different, but they are both ruled by Uranus is ruled by, or Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and Virgo is ruled by Mercury, actually. So there is a place there in terms of the realm of the intellect or the mind that we can find our common ground when we have to make an adjustment with this frustration. And it's about seeing our own emotional and feeling based experience as an asset, as a force, a life force that we're feeling within ourselves, yet we are being drawn to acting on our own self-interest and that warrior nature. And then especially with Venus in Aquarius as well, we are being pulled into the embodiment and our sensitivity and wanting to act on aspects of the social collective as a whole, right? Act in accordance with humanity, whereas the moon in Virgo is very much in our own self, like getting into our own self. So finding a place, a space, an actual space to allow us to see the value of going within ourselves to what is coming forward, than the idealized version of humanity that Venus and Mars are still working with. I think there is actually a lot of overlap, more so than other quincunxes sometimes, because of the nature of Aquarius being very mental and Virgo actually being ruled by Mercury. So the other aspects that are strongly experienced are, speaking of Mercury, is going to be the opposition with the Virgo moon and Mercury in Pisces, which has just been lovely as far as I am concerned. And because it is really, our imagination is the only boundary with Mercury in Pisces, which also can lead us down rabbit holes of reality that could, really do some damage later. So thankfully, the Virgo moon is here to keep us in check. So, and specifically, the opposition represents, that we there's a part of us, I think, and an acknowledgement, at least at a mental level, and a real interest to discover and to move towards not seeking anymore, but finding our place and proving ourselves able to fulfill the function that's associated with that place. That's either, at the side of Yeshua or Jesus. Perhaps it is no longer seeking, again, like being born again in some sort of spiritual sense, or just knowing your place, knowing your mission, knowing the group where you really belong at a spiritual level, and no longer seeking, but going through the process of proving oneself worthy of that membership. And while the mind is ready to just fully engage, there is this opposition with the moon that has us really feeling into what it's actually like, what it actually means to snatch the veil away from that dreamy visualization, right? That it's kind of this sense of like perfection that we're ready to give our very precious mental energy and attention and focus to, whereas in our feels, right? Like we're feeling, oh wow, this is what it actually means to pull the veil away, to snatch it away, to have a mastered inner to to have a mastery over ourselves, that we can do that and have this kind of almost penetrating experience with the unveiling of this dreamy visualization of Mercury. So it's not that either of these things we should, the tendency is to go to one way or the other. And I think that this can be a little bit too serious emotionally for some people, because they're continuing to just try to like pull back the veil, right? Pull back the skin, pull back the curtain, so to speak, and in a way that is deeply within ourselves, or subconsciously doing it. But then we may question maybe we're continuing to seek. I mean, I think that is a lot of it too, that it represents an emotional seeking still, as we are pulling layer after layer after layer. So finding the mid ground, right? We want to acknowledge a position within ourselves, at least mentally, right? Our awareness can be towards no longer seeking, but we also don't want to ever lose the capacity within ourselves to actually do the work of looking behind our own shadow. That way, we don't get stuck in the Draco aspect ultimately, and just self-serving with our spiritual and energy adept gifts, but we actually give it, prove ourselves to be worthy and to offer that. But you also don't want to like be so, wrapped up in the fantasy here, which is very easy for Mercury, because he's just like, whatever, I go wherever I want. Like, I don't commit to nothing, right? But there's a mutual reception here, because the moon really actually is very strong in Pisces, right? It's a companion to Pisces, and Mercury rules Virgo. So there's also some common ground that we can utilize here as well, with these two aspects, these two bodies being in territory that they each oppositely feel comfortable in. And so I think that this is, don't lose sight of the work that, and the reality within ourselves, but at the same time, you don't want to like shut yourself off from imagining and being inspired and offering this incredibly masterful mind, or this mastery of our own inner realm, to something very powerful. Because, I mean, this is really, we're getting to the point with Mercury that this is the position where we had a new moon, and we're still in the middle of that cycle. We're about to have a full moon that started with a new moon at 12 to 13 degrees Pisces. So we also are re-evaluating, or possibly feeling like there's deeper. Maybe the symbol that I have committed myself to in terms of an avatar isn't exactly what I thought it was, and I need to go deeper. So that's a potential as well. And this is all coming about by the end of today. You can even see that this is crossing over into 17th, St. Patrick's Day. Now, what else is going on? There's some pretty strong aspect lines here. Well, here's that trine to Uranus, that reality had been glitching, material reality had been glitching in terms of all of the potential of what we could have. And now we are much more weighed down by the baggage of it. So we make decisions based on what we want to have, want to experience, our senses, and what has value and meaning. And now it is about carrying that if we want to have it. And it's not to say that we should or shouldn't. It's just Uranus makes it very difficult to be weighed down. And in fact, I think we're going to find ourselves becoming very innovative and possibly thinking outside of the box about how to manage the actual material weight of that which we want to have in terms of what's valuable to us. So with the moon in a trine to this, by the end of the day, the moon in a trine to Virgo, again, this is a moment where we become like a powerful statesman, right? We overcome a state of chaos outside of us in our own self. And and this trine is incredibly stabilizing in a way that I think we really need. I'm looking forward to it. And what's a trine other than a 120-degree angle? This is a foundation. It's very harmonious, but requires nothing. So I do see by the end of today, like, if we have managed to find that sense of power in the midst of a bunch of chaos, then I think that emotionally it will certainly ground us as we are really experiencing now what it's like to have the baggage of that which we socially want to have. And this can come out in a lot of different ways today, but think about it in terms of your own journey, because it really is going to take a personality that has, and a character that has that type of gravity to it, that is going to stabilize us in a very unstable material reality that we are sensitive to, and especially the baggage of it, right? It's going to take a very, like I said, a character with some serious gravity, and maybe that gravity too is going to make everything seem even heavier too. So Uranus is going to be, it's going to be very tricky here. But this is also, I think, a very powerful trine. But at the same time, as you can see, it's in a square to Lilith, also in Gemini right now, getting very close to Aldebaran. And Lilith is this primal survival mechanism. This is the original blueprint. This is the mitochondrial DNA. This is what allows us to be us. And you only get it from the mother. If you erase that aspect out of reality, then you lose connection to our human ancestral blueprint. And this is why this comes out in either angry activist fashion or in primal self-preservation, really strong, powerful channel coming through us that we don't even know exists. That's because it's taking us back to our original roots. And remember, Gemini is ruled by Mercury and has to do with the observation, the data itself, but Virgo is the analysis. And at the same time that there is this trine to Uranus, the square to a sense of accomplishment or a sense of virtuosity, something that we want to offer of ourselves and our own skill set that really inspires other people. And I feel like that this particular square, at the same time with this trine to Uranus, this is the difference between, hey, I need to share everything that I've learned so that you can be inspired to do the same thing. In fact, almost to the point where, and it's brewing, right? This is a retrograde Lilith. It's going to come back over this point and really be expressed. So it's more under the surface again. There's a lot of stuff going on under the surface today for us, and it's brewing, and it's like, hey, everything I've learned, everything I've done all this research, I've done all this learning, I've done all of this really mental, cerebral type of discovery, and I want to share it. I want to show you and practice it. But it's completely conceptual, and the square to the moon at this moment here by the end of today is going to have us tapped in more presently right now into our own need to not share what we've learned, but to show how we take what we have learned and use it to master our own self, right? It's not about expressing it to inspire other people. It'll be a strong feeling to take the gravity of our character in order to find a sense of stability amidst chaos. And we're just going to have to feel into that. Remember, it's in a trine to Uranus. And so perhaps there is, we've made a decision. We know what we want, and we know what it's going to take in order to get what we want to, to carry that baggage. And Uranus is going to give us lots of different options as long as we understand, again, how to come to a moment of like powerful stabilization in all of this chaos, and Uranus will cause chaos. So that's the other thing too. So as everything is falling apart all around us, and we were like trying to shout it from the rooftops of like, here, let me show you, let me show you what I've done and how I've done it. It's really about the individual right now, pulling it together. So I'm going to leave it there, my friends. That is plenty for today's transmission. I am so pleased to bring this to you. We're going to have the moon come, move through the rest of Virgo basically tomorrow on the 17th. And that means it's going to be an opposite to Jupiter and Neptune as well. So there is a whole transit that I didn't even get to talk about with Chiron and Pallas Athena. So we'll save that for another time for sure, because there is a connection here that we don't often get to talk about with Chiron. We're always talking about the wounds of Chiron. We're never talking about the asset of Chiron. And so coming together with Pallas Athena today in Aries, it is a moment where we can really, really learn something about ourselves and strategize how to hold space for a polarized sense of self when we decide or have a visual representation of what natural law, cosmic law, God's law really means to each of us. So with that being said, I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you're interested in a reading, interested in energy work to support your process, interested in being part of our subscriber base, so a monthly subscriber through Subscribestar, part of our membership is in the description box below, and you have access to full moon astrology, new moon astrology forecast for your sign, and the Starseed Fellowship every other week. Everything you need is in the description box below. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. I'll see you tomorrow for the transmission, and I hope you have an excellent day. Peace out, guys. Bye.